Hey, happy Monday. Wednesday. It is Wednesday. Hope you guys are having a good week. I'll hop on here and give you the rundown for Q&A tonight. Don't have a guest. We had Johnny on Monday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Always like talking to him. Johnny Crypto, he's over there with Merlin. And Warriors Rise. Coach JV. Anyway, we're going to run down a bunch of different things tonight. Really just an AMA, but to kick it off, we got some pretty exciting things happening. I know there's a lot of people that are, in digital assets. Some people are super excited, potential of Ethereum ETFs. You've got Solana still raging. You've got crazy stuff going on with the meme coins. People are speculating on NFTs again. You've got huge volumes moving in on the Bitcoin ETFs through BlackRock. Larry Fink was on, I don't know which news channel he was on today, but I know he was there. I guess it had to have been Fox because he was talking to Gasparino. So anyway, lots of big moves happening. Everybody's a little bit distraught about the SEC asking for $2 billion for their damages against Ripple. I think it was, we sit on their cap table, so we got an email from Brad yesterday, which is shared in the mastermind group, and it broke down just their opinion on the situation, how they were going to respond, and then also basically how they're assessing that $2 billion. It was $900 million for one, $200 million for something else, and then $900 million for losses or damages, right? I don't think any of that's going to stand. There's really no precedent for it. You've got the most that's ever been awarded to the SEC in one of these cases is $50 million, which he also, mentioned in the email that he sent out to everybody that sits on the cap table. And my expectation is far less than $2 billion. Ripple could pay it. They got it. But I don't think that they will be doing that. So they get their retort. They get to put that in by April 22nd. And then the SEC has a chance to respond, I think, by May 6th. And then hopefully we get some type of settlement between now and then. I kind of expect that the SEC will probably, we'll see how it shakes out. I think they may end up paying the court costs for Ripple for the case. That would be a dream scenario. And hopefully we get some type of legislation that allows for other people to understand how to come to market in a regulated way. Some type of, second iteration of the Howey test, but for digital assets, maybe they call it the Ripple test. We'll see what actually comes about for that. Maybe we just get regulation for stablecoins by Congress and it wipes the whole thing in the meantime here. But you also got the case with Coinbase. I was on Around the Blockchain earlier today. For you guys that don't follow that channel here on YouTube, it used to be Ben Armstrong's channel. Obviously, there was a parting of the ways there, and Ben is now on his own, separate of what he had originally created. But I do like the people over there. No hard feelings either direction. But I think they put on a good show, and they always have quality people on there. Tony from Thinking Crypto was on there today with me, along with a couple other guys that I respect. So if you didn't get a chance, go check that out. We did talk about, the case between Ripple and then also the SEC and Coinbase and some of the implications for the broader market if, that were to go south for Coinbase. I do think they're probably going to have to get certified and licensed in order to be able to exchange securities and commodities and not just have money transmitter licenses in all 50 states like they do. They are the world's kind of go-to exchange at this point. They are publicly traded here in the U.S. The SEC did give them the green light to be able to go public. They would have had to file the S1 with them and, do the normal proceedings that go along with that in order to be publicly traded. So there's a lot of things stacked against the SEC in that case. But the judge didn't rule to throw it out. So I'm sure that there will be some type of outcome there that sets some precedent for the exchanges and the regulations around that. And we need that, right? We need actual regulation around the space or precedent that's been put forth in the courts that tells you what the rules of the road are here in the U.S. and other jurisdictions. They're doing that. Just recently traveled to Dubai. they've got a regulatory authority there called VARA, which is a virtual asset regulatory authority. And they are over all of digital assets, irrespective of, if it's tokenized securities or commodities or currencies or assets, whatever it might be. If it's tokenized, they are the regulator dealing with that. So I don't know. It actually does cause some regulation overstep, and people there aren't quite sure on their lanes. Sometimes the DIFC, who deals with the majority of the securities, does have regulations around tokenized securities. And you kind of get I don't want to say misinformation, but different parties have different perspectives on who you should be dealing with, right? And so anyway, you get oversight from both and make sure that you're compliant with both of the regulations that have been put out, and you're good to go over there. I like that they have free zones where there's some oversight, but there's really not, they're not going to suppress the innovation. You're able to move into those zones and build things out as long as you're, transparent about how you're transacting and you're not doing anything illegal. Then they allow you they basically work with you to foster innovation over there, which I think is really integral to how the space needs to continue to move forward. I wish the U.S. would, set some type of safe harbor rule. Did get to meet with Commissioner Pierce about a month ago, a little longer than a month ago at Georgetown. They're discussing potential safe harbor 3.0. So hopefully we get something to that measure here in the U.S., or maybe there's some global regulation that comes in, and each jurisdiction has its own little nuances that they build on top of that with. So maybe the IMF, the UN, or another governing body that's got a global presence steps in with something, and we adopt it. You've also got MICA, or MiCA, however you want to say it over there in the EU. We got instant settlement regulations, and that implementation supposed to go live like April 8th. So that's big for what I think, most of these tokens that are on distributed ledger technology. I know that there's a lot of FUD in the space right now when it comes to XRP in particular. They got to get the last couple hands to fold here, I think. And then they've done it. I've seen a ton of people that have been bullish on XRP for 6+ years capitulate within the last week here. So not me, just double down. But everybody makes their own choices, right? So chat's already running up. I'm going to go ahead and get in here and start answering some questions. If you guys do have anything, we can cover tax mitigation, setting up your estate and your entities, how to prepare for a digital asset liquidity event, what the brokers are for sourcing liquidity to be able to exit, maybe some types of investments that you might, take that exit liquidity and go into to produce long-term income. We can get into all that here in the chat. And if you have, technical questions about digital assets and implementation and real-world applications, we'd love to talk about that too. So go ahead and jump into it here. We've got, here we go. Gail has asked, would you go through the steps of going from a single member LLC to a multi-member one? Pretty simple. You're just going to amend your operating agreement to include the other individuals on the cap table, and for whatever percentages they're coming in with. You can gift them equity, or they can make contributions to the business. Those would be denoted there in the operating agreement. You guys would sign that and execute it. It would be dated. Hopefully it's an amendment to the existing operating agreement where you already gifted the digital assets into the LLC as capital contributions to start it. So that's a pretty simple process. You just amend the operating agreement in order to add other members. If it was an S Corp or a C Corp, then you would have transfer of shares. LLCs just have equity units. And so just denoting that, what percentage they own of the equity units there in the operating agreement suffices. Chris has said, hey, Jake, love the content. Thank you for the kind words, especially the domino theory coming in hot with my first question. How exactly does BlackRock have exposure to their ETF? They own the Bitcoin. And that was what the big deal about the spot ETF was. The spot ETFs, they actually have to own and custody the underlying asset in whatever ratio they're charging for the ETF, right? So with Bitcoin, I think they're trading at like, I don't know if it's somewhere between 30 and 50 on the ETF, right? And obviously that's backed by physical Bitcoin that's held at Coinbase. That's all listed there in the S1 filing that they made with the SEC and had to get approved back on January 10th. If you want to look through that document, they do have exposure to Bitcoin, direct exposure. They do hold it, and they settle T+2 for rebalancing. So that's really the problem. But yeah, they do have direct exposure to Bitcoin. Mr. Z, appreciate you hopping on here. Coming in from Canada, appreciate you joining from up north. Hopefully it warms up a little bit for you guys up there. I saw the snow flurries and everything that's going on, and I'm not envious. I like being in Texas here where it's a little warmer, 65 today in March. He says, questions. LLCs don't exist here. Yeah, not in Canada. And trusts are only good for 21 years, then sufficient taxes or significant taxes. Should one option be a holding company? We do have clients that are in Canada that do have TIN numbers that participate with their entities here in the US. It's something that we can set up and help you with. My suggestion would actually be to not get involved with the US. You're already in a pretty stringent tax jurisdiction there in Canada. My suggestion would be to hold your assets, someplace a little more tax friendly, maybe the Caymans, Bermuda. That's a favorite of the gentleman that we work with up there in Canada. He sets up trusts down there. His name is Aaron Grinhoss. If you would like his email, happy to share that with you guys. Very proficient with digital assets and has a lot of resources up there in Canada to make sure that you can be taken care of on the other side of the event. And we can, always work with international citizens to custody their assets and then also be an advisor for them as well. So anyway, yeah, that would be, can't give advice, but my suggestion would be contact him and maybe discuss some international estate planning. Lewis is nice enough. He says, how much do you expect XRP to fall this week? I just want to accumulate more at the most close, better price. I know about the suffer methodology that you use to but know what I mean. I don't think we go down from here. We might get a situation where, I've talked about this domino theory where things fall apart. There might be a short period of time where there's enough liquidity in that situation that you could execute a buy order. If they freeze Tether, if they sanction Tether, done. Liquidity's done on exchanges. You're not going to be able to, they'll just freeze. They won't even be able to operate. They'll have to start using XRP in order to facilitate liquidity in those circumstances. And the DEX that's inherent to the network would suffice until the AMMs are ready to go here in a few weeks. I'm accumulating where we're at. Not financial advice, but that's just me. Dollar cost average is always going to beat somebody that tries to. Here's the deal for me on XRP, or really, this is any investment that's going to have potentially 1,000x. Okay, you're not going to care. It's not going to matter if you got in at 20 cents, 30 cents, 40 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents, 90 cents, anything under $1 for something that goes to thousands of dollars. Like, do you think the people that hold Ethereum now care what price they bought it at? If they got in the single digits? No, they don't. They're able to leverage it. They're able to stake it and earn income with it. There's huge upside on the ROI, and now they have all of the other wonderful things that go along with that. Once an asset's got liquidity in it. So, people want to fight over pennies. I'm not one of those people. I would rather just dollar cost average over a period of time and know that I have what I could get invested, and I'm not going to miss it on the other side of it. So, lots of good questions here. Dan says, speaking of domino theory, it looks like Japan is having some trouble. They sure are. They raised rates and the yen is plummeting in comparison to the dollar. It's the lowest point since 1990. And they're going to have to do something in order to shore up their currency. There was a question that I actually had on Twitter today. Somebody said, I see it falling in opposition to the dollar. Why would they dump treasuries now? Well, if they did, it would undermine the dollar and their currency would appreciate against the dollar. That's why they would dump treasuries. We'll see if that transpires or not. You got HSBC went live with their gold, tokenized gold fund that people can make allocations to. They brought that to retail. I believe today or yesterday was the first trading for that. So pretty significant move there. And my expectation is, Japan's in a pilot phase for their CBDC. They could launch it tomorrow if they wanted to. And I think they might. We're right at the end of the last iteration of that. Same thing with India. Tomorrow's their go live for T+0 for their stock market. There's going to be 25 different stocks on their stock market that's have the capability to settle real time. And so, there's got to be some intermediary, some system that settles real time. The only thing that I know that does that's distributed ledger technology. So we'll see, what the next few weeks bring, but a lot of things are lining up for the domino theory. Let's run it down here. Appreciate everybody hopping in the chat, running up the viewers. If you're on X, if you're on YouTube, whatever other platform you're watching on, appreciate you, taking some time out of your evening and spending it here with me. Let's see here. Sorry about the late start, guys. Lots of people here in the chat a little bit early, anticipating. Here we go. John Blazer has said, Jake, any news or updates on PolySign? Did the deal with Ripple become official? I haven't heard anything from the NYDFS. I would need to reach back out to Jack. In my last conversation, he made it seem as though that would happen sooner than later. We're waiting to onboard some clients, and so need to have that conversation. But crickets is off so far. I know that the individual that I used to work with for the onboarding there, his last day is the 31st. So Sunday will be his last day with PolySign Center Custody. He's moving on to a staking provider, a staking infrastructure company, and wish him the best. So my expectation is, if he's leaving and that's his last day, they're probably going to have to move somebody else in for me to have a conversation with, and things should be finalized at that point. So hopefully, maybe even tomorrow, we get approval from the NYDFS for Ripple's acquisition of PolySign, but nothing yet. Chris has asked, Jake, do you think Swift will use XRP in their CBDC? I'm going to add one more word to your question and say platform or exchange, and my answer would be yes. They don't have another choice. They will either work with RippleNet or they can work with R3, and it doesn't matter which one they use. They'll still have to settle through XRP. Both of them have the capability to settle through XRP, I guess is what I'll say. So, I think they're going to have to use it irrespective of which option they choose. George says same thing, when I was mentioning Ripple and the bill. I'm hopeful the SEC has to pay them back for their damages and losses. I think that they went to market the right way. They sold to accredited investors and institutions, but they didn't register it as a securities offering with the SEC when they were doing that. And then, after the FinCEN deal and the fines there, they migrated that to XRP2. It was a company that sold the XRP to the institutions. The institutions then sold on secondary markets through exchanges. And so that's how retail got exposure, was through the exchanges. There weren't any direct sales to retail. And that's why I think it should be. I think that you should be able to go to market, have an ICO, register it with the SEC, and hopefully, eventually be able to do it in qualified custody if I get my way. And, participate, accredited investors, qualified purchasers, and maybe even sophisticated investors in certain circumstances can participate in those ICOs and get exposure early on. And then, again, retail can get exposure through secondary trading of the asset. Let's see here. Here's another good one. XRP Pappy, appreciate you hopping on tonight. How do you feel about what's going on with Japan's yen? And how do you feel about Swift announcing their CBDC platform using CLS, distracting people away from XRP? Yeah, that's... There's a lot of FUD out there right now. It is thick. And I have a different perspective than a lot of people, is all I'll say on that. And I think the yen is definitely a catalyst. I think there's a potential that they'll deleverage U.S. Treasuries, start buying their own bonds, increase the yield that you can get there, maybe implement the CBDC on their side, start transacting with that, and announce that it's gold backed, and shore up their currency so that it's no longer following the U.S. dollar in opposition. Basically, we've seen what's happened with Russia. Okay, so Russia got sanctioned, and then there was a big fall, and after the fall, they shored everything up with gold, announced that they had a gold-backed currency, and it was pegged at a certain rate, and now it's trading above the value of a dollar in comparison to where it was before. So I think the same thing could definitely happen for the yen if they were to basically renounce the U.S. dollar, which would be scary for a lot of people, and dump U.S. Treasuries and back their currency with gold, or maybe they roll out their CBDC that's backed with gold. I think you could see a pretty significant shift in the appreciation of the yen against the dollar. Let's see here. XRP Junkie says, I'm assuming this is blockchain backer, BCB, seems to believe that most layer 1 cryptos follow the US stock market. Do you think catalysts like having settlement, ETF, and IPO announcements will debunk his theory? BCB's been on point with all of his calls over the years. I am not a TA guy, and I will say that. I can't read charts. I don't know what's going on. The majority of what I've learned has been from him and other fantastic people in the space when it comes to charting. But I will say, if you show me the chart, I'll tell you the news. The news tends to follow the chart, in my opinion. I think we're primed for a breakout in a couple different assets. And I'm sure that there will be news that correlates with that breakout, right? There's always negative news that comes out, and people basically attach, downturns in the market to negative news and upturns in the market to positive news. I think the chart just is. As long as the constraints remain the same and utility is not brought in, I think that the one thing that could debunk BCB's thesis on stuff is actually, so as long as constraints remain the same and the market is driven by speculation, his stuff will play out. As soon as there's utility on one of these assets, everything that he has up to this point that he's based all of his theories off of goes out the window, because that asset's going to move in a completely different way than it has in the past, because the constraints will have changed. So having all that stuff that you mentioned here in this question currently plays some type of catalyst and role. The halving has always had an effect on the market, 4-year cycles. I think this time the halving is more of a buy the rumor, sell the news situation. I could be proven wrong on that. It is very unusual that we are at all-time high for Bitcoin before the halving. It's never happened before. To me, that says constraints have changed. So I think Bitcoin has actually started the bear market. It might see one more, tippy top high, one more touch to 75,000. And then I think that there's going to be a significant downturn, but we'll see. That's just my thesis. I don't have any more information than anybody else. So just my speculation. Let's see here. Lots of good questions in the chat. Appreciate everybody hopping on here. Here's interesting. TK says, all these people are collaborating for Swift. Great video on what appears to be collaboration between these parties. Yeah, and Ripple. Ripple's mentioned in Swift documents that have been put out at this point. That's what's crazy to me. Like, there's so many people that are falling off right now, and now they're screaming it louder than ever, that they're probably going to integrate. There was a conference where Brad sat next to the IMF director, and then another one where he sat next to Swift, and he like jokingly said, maybe we'll be working together in a few years, and he was like, yeah, give it a few years. But I think we're at that was 3, 4, 5 years ago when that happened. So I think it's about time. If they're going to move to T+0 for any of this stuff and need instant settlement for the back end of the stock market or for remittance, you had SEPA go live. I think it was just last Monday for the EU. There's a lot of progress that we've seen in a short period of time that indicates that we're moving very, very rapidly toward instant settlement. And that requires an agnostic asset, a bridge asset that allows for those transactions to take place on distributed ledger technology. And then you got Swift saying, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to launch CBDCs. And they're telling you, 12 to 24 months. If they're making that announcement, they've already got it ready. They're already through the trial period. They could roll it out tomorrow. They just need the right reason for that. So, excuse me. Sam has posed a good question here. He says, do you have an exit plan? And if so, what does it look like? So I will just start off by saying, happy to discuss that. I'm not giving you financial advice. You need to do what's best for your situation, your family, all those things. But I will get into kind of my plan. I do plan to take some profits in the short term. If I'm not able to immediately leverage loans against the assets, never wrong to take profits. You never go broke doing that. Even if you're going into fiat, if you have real returns, you can spend it. That's not going away. The US dollar is not going anywhere. If you're selling into US dollars, is what it is, right? I don't like the currency. I think I'm going to get it into something else as fast as I can. It's like a public restroom. That's how I look at cash and Tether and Bitcoin when I'm dealing with them, and even exchanges. In a public restroom, I get in there, I do my business, and I get out, right? I'm not hanging out there very long. So if I do liquidate into cash, I've got some outstanding things that I need to cover. We've got some big plans for the businesses that I'm involved in and CEO of. And I'd like to, be able to put some capital to work there, and then put a down payment on a multifamily property, save up for 6 months off the cash flows there, and then take that and put it down on a home for my wife and I, and be able to use the income off of that property to continue to pay for the home in perpetuity, and if we decide at some point we need to downsize or do whatever else, we can sell that home and we still have the multifamily property that cash flows every single month and pays for our lifestyle and where we live, right? Or travel to, whatever we're doing. So that's kind of the plan for me. Won't give you like hard numbers, but the whole point of me saying those things is I know what I'm going to do with the money. I know what those things cost. I know how much I have to sell at different price points in order to execute on that. And that's really what you need to figure out. There's a lot of people that talk about take 10% here, 50% here, 30%, save this for the moon bag. Cool. I'm cool with all that. But those need to be for a reason. I'm taking this capital to do this that sets me up, right? And I've already got it inside of an LLC or trust so that I know I can mitigate the tax implications. Or if I'm going to do it in my individual name, I know what the tax implications are, and I'm going to set that money aside somewhere so that I can pay Uncle Sam at the end of the year and I know how much profit I need to take, even with the taxes taken out, to make sure I can execute on what I want to do with that capital. So that would be how I think through things. That's how I think through things, and that's my exit plan. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Sam. Rob is running it up tonight on Twitter. Appreciate you, Mr. Cunningham. It's good to see you here in the chat. Let's see here. Logan Nash says 2025 is prediction. I can't give you a year. I don't know what the year is going to be. I'm just going to tell you what I think is going to end up on the XRPL, maybe potentially by that point, and then the volume that would be on the network then, and the price that it would have to be in order to cover that volume. Okay, so this is contingent on real world assets being tokenized, all the money. It's not going to be all the money in 2025, but a good portion of the money, I think, will flow onto the network at that point. I think we'll be a lot further down the road than we are now. So let's say we got Swift, FX, commodities, bonds, gold, and the stock market. I think all those things are possible by the end of 2025. Daily volume on that would be, I don't know, somewhere close to $30 or $40 trillion. And if you had that on the network every single day, I mean, you got to have, and this also depends on how much XRP is available for that amount of transactions, right? So there's a lot of different variables here. So I'm going to give you a price range. You need somewhere between a $500 and $5,000 XRP to facilitate the transfer and settlement of all of that volume and value. So maybe even up to 10,000, depending on the supply that's available at that point, in order to be able to facilitate all those things. So, that's a lot of things that have to transpire between now and then. You got CBDCs, and that would do FX and international remittance, wholesale payments between central banks. Commodities need to be brought on chain. That's a process. You got bonds. Bonds are not too difficult to tokenize. They've already done that. There's already pilots for that. You got precious metals. That's being done already. It can be done again. Stocks, there's been a lot of tests for that. We just had the DTCC. They acquired Securities last year. And then you also had BlackRock, who's now working with Securities for the tokenization of funds. So all these things are starting to build momentum. We just need regulatory clarity around stable coins. And then at that point, I think we'll see, Chris Larson talks about it. He says it's a Cambrian explosion. That's my anticipation. I don't think it's going to be a slow, steady grind. I think once things get going, I think it's going to happen very quickly. So that's, anywhere from $500 to $10,000 is that's a wide gap for price prediction in 2025, depending on the availability of the XRP and the volume that's moving over the network. This is good. Heath says Japanese yen is collapsing and I'm accumulating until I get tired of it. If you think they're going to stand it back up and rebound quickly against the dollar, it's probably a good trade. I'm sure you could probably buy options to short the dollar against the yen for very cheap at the current moment, and hedge your bet the other way also. So if you're never financial advice, if you're going to deal with options, make sure you know what you're doing. If you're going to play with leverage, make sure you know what you're doing. To do test accounts and stuff before you ever get into that. But great way to hedge positions if you're not taking advantage of those things. Rob says, Jake, given BlackRock owns the BTC, investors only own ETF wrapper, and bail-in laws could risk the ETF. It's paper. It's a derivative of the underlying product, right? That's why so many people want to own physical gold and silver and know where it is. That's why they say, not your keys, not your crypto, right? You want to hold it. I think that the regulation around that will probably change. these ETFs and other stuff that are wrappers, like you said, do make it really easy for the average retail investor to get exposure to something. There's not this huge learning curve of them having to figure out how to buy digital assets, connect their bank account, hope that the bank allows them to buy digital assets, figure out a cold wallet, how to move it off of the exchange, send it into the abyss a couple times because they don't know what they're doing. Like, there's a large learning curve for anybody that actually wants to get into this space in a meaningful way, and doesn't want to just hold it on a centralized exchange. Could they bail in? Technically, they could. Here's the deal: if BlackRock goes down, Rob, we're all screwed. We're going to Mad Max. They own everything. They're one of the largest investors alongside State Street and Vanguard in pretty much the entire U.S. stock market. And if you had a collapse of BlackRock, I don't think they'll let it collapse. You got Robbie Mitchnick, who sits at the head of the digital asset division there at BlackRock. He recently removed his time at Ripple off of his LinkedIn profile, which is interesting to me. I don't know why he would do that unless he was trying to hide that fact for whatever reason. What's going to play out is orchestrated. We've learned that from 2008. We've learned that from 2020. We've learned that from a lot of things. The top for Bitcoin in 2017, they introduced futures on it and shorted it. That's when we saw the top in Bitcoin to the day that they introduced the CME. So them introducing the ETFs is another way to manipulate it. If they did want to collapse it, this is the perfect way to do that, right? Like, you get the buy-in from all the retail, you get them hyped, you get them excited, everybody's on the train, all the institutions are in, and then you rug them. and all the hedge funds guys can sell into the liquidity, and they have been. There's been people taking huge profits on their Bitcoin. But the buy volume is so high from the institutions that they're able to cover it up and price continues higher. So yeah, there's been a ton of people to get it. I know clients that have sold significant amounts of Bitcoin over the last couple of months here. So, just be aware of that. There are people that are getting out at these prices and converting to fiat, buying physical assets and other things that produce cash flow, or sticking on the sidelines waiting for a significant downturn or a credit event in the market. Uncle Warren's still pretty deep in cash. So we'll see what type of deals exist on the other side, if there is some type of downturn, and maybe it's orchestrated. Let's see here. Atlantic Living, chatting it up from Canada. Appreciate you hopping on here. International. When do you honestly think this is going to hit thousands of dollars? If you mean XRP by this, there's got to be events that play out, right? So again, you're going to have enough volume to support that. Retail's never going to drive the price that high. Even institutions, if they made an allocation, they're going to have a reason to hold that much of it and use it. We're going to need regulatory clarity on it, right? So that's one. Got to have that. AMMs have to be usable by institutions in order to be able to exchange the XRP in those pools and provide liquidity and drive price there, lock it up. You're going to need CBDCs issued on the network, and you're probably going to need the tokenization of a large portion of real world assets that have been brought on chain, and that volume needs to be steady for those transactions. So there's going to be markets that have to be brought onto the mainnet for the XRPL for it to be in the thousands of dollars. If you're asking about a time frame, I'm hopeful in the next 2 years, realistically. But that's not to say things can't get delayed. They've been delayed a bunch of times. I haven't seen any change of pace for India's introduction of T+0 that goes live tomorrow. I've not seen any news articles that push that date. We've got, again, the EU that are pushing their regulations forward on April 8th for instant settlement. So they kind of we also have the Digital Dollar Project that's now partnered with the Digital Pound Foundation that was announced last week. You've got MasterCard coming into the space in a meaningful way. We just met with them in Dubai a couple weeks ago. Pretty exciting stuff. They have some really cool things in the works. And the institutions and the players are here. They're ready for it. We're just waiting for the green light from regulators, and then off we go. So, a couple years max is, in my opinion. Let's see here. Lots of good stuff in the chat here. Appreciate all the kind words. This is a good one. Masushi? I'm probably butchering that. I apologize. What's your favorite exchange to accumulate XRP on? Uphold or BitTrue or Kraken. Just being a US person, that's where I'm able to buy. I don't mess with KuCoin anymore. I know a lot of people had some stuff over there. If you can get it off, I would get it off. Probably some problems coming along. I know OKX delisted Tether, so you're probably okay there. Bitstamp is another one that I've used. And then the DEX on the XRPL through Zum, or it's no longer Sum anymore. It's Xman. So lots of different ways that you can get to it. Those are just some of mine, but I like OTC desk, especially for large orders. If you're going to do that, Kraken and Uphold, both are like 20 bips or 20 basis points for the fees on those platforms, which is significantly less than the 4% that Uphold charges you as a retail investor, or Coinbase even. I do buy on Coinbase infrequently. I'm still kind of like butthurt with Coinbase, though. I'll be honest, like they delisted XRP so quickly when the lawsuit happened. And now they're in litigation with the SEC, and they're talking to Stuart Alderati. Paul is frequently meeting with them, and they're sharing notes. I think people were a little bit hasty in some of their commentary when XRP and Ripple and Brad and Chris were sued in December of 2020. And I think the whole industry's come around on that and realized that maybe they were wrong on a lot of that, just because of how the trial has played out. And then also now a lot of other people are getting sued, right? And so that's not fun. It's fun to be the guy to point the finger. That's not so fun when you got the four fingers pointing back at you, and it ends up coming back on you. So anyway, big long drawn out answer there, but yeah, probably those would be the three: BitTrue, Uphold, and Kraken would be my main go-tos. And if you need contacts for the OTC desk, you're trading more than $250,000, holler at me, info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and I'm happy to share the heads of the institutional trading desk there with you guys. Is staking really worth it if there are no regulations on the tokens? It's a gamble. I'll just be real with you guys. There's been points where I've held things that I've staked and earned income with. You got to be aware of the tax implications that you have on those. I will say there's two ways that you can get around the tax implications for staking returns. So one is a lockup period where the assets are stuck in a pool and you don't get access to them for like 20 days or whatever. Like if you're on Atomic Wallet and you stake Atom, it's like 20 days before you can get it off there. When you unstake it, the rewards just accumulate in the pool, tax free. It's great until you take a distribution and those assets are in your control, not taxable. The other way that you can get around that is if you have a secondary signer on your wallet. It's a multi-sig wallet where you don't have full control of being able to execute a transaction with that wallet. Once the assets leave the wallet, different story. But let's say you were taking your Solana with us at standard custody, and you've got your rewards accumulating in your wallet there, and because we're multiple signatories, it's multi-sig in order to execute a transaction, your rewards would accumulate there with no tax implications until you remove them from our custody. So appreciate anybody that's super chatting, throwing in donations. Really appreciate all the support you guys have. let's see here. Scroll on down. I know that person hopped up on the screen here. This is a good one. This is asked, what's my thoughts on Flare? Do you think there will be greater incentives through delegation than institutions? I can't shake the fact that I think Flare is the decentralized finance for institutions. I was around for the snapshot in 2020. I held XRP at the time. I had it on a cold wallet. I had to deal with MetaMask and dealing with that deal to get my Flare. I had some in a IRA and eventually got it, but you couldn't stake it or delegate it, and I had to remove it from there to be able to use it. But the majority of the holders at that point, there were 2.7 million wallets. I remember looking at the rich list and like checking that out. It was early days for me in the space. And the majority of the holders at that point would have been institutions. So that's who got the flare drop when it did happen. And then you saw the price dump over an extended period of time. If you wanted people to sell and capitulate your flare, like there's not a better storyline for that. People have sold, nobody wants it. It's finally come back into vogue a little bit. People are starting to accumulate more of it again. But the people that stuck it out and got the rewards for that period of time, I think they're going to do very well. I think that there's a possibility again that the institutions, that's what they use as their DeFi protocol that they actually invest clients' funds in. So again, because they would have been the ones that got the most distribution. Ripple employees did not participate in that. It's interesting to me that David Schwartz is contracted by Ripple as their CTO. He's not an employee of Ripple, and because of that, he was able to participate in the flare drop. His thesis or his ethos that he continues to speak is that he's not going to miss the next Ethereum. He sold about 40,000 Ethereum at $1 to put a new roof on his home for him and his wife back in the day. And that transaction you can't actually see on the ledger, which he's spoken about before. So anyway, pretty interesting stuff. Obviously, he holds Flare, he holds XRP, and he goes, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on the AMM. So that tells me if he's that sharp and he's that excited about it, it's going to be well worth our time. We've got another good question here. It says, it seems like in New York, you cannot trade XRP alongside some other assets. Do you think forming a single member LLC formed in Wyoming will allow you to trade assets like XRP if you're a New York resident? The answer is yes. The caveat, I would say, is you're still going to need a VPN. So if you don't have a VPN, Nord is my VPN of choice. You'll need to push your IP address over to Wyoming or Colorado or somewhere closer to that jurisdiction in order to be able to sign in to the exchanges. And then you will use the LLC's information to set up an account, and you should be able to purchase XRP or trade it as you need to, even if you do reside in New York and you are a New York citizen. So that's my workaround. I did chat with a guy that lived there today, and he said he could buy it on Coinbase. He was able to swap from Bitcoin over to XRP on Coinbase in New York, didn't have a VPN on. So I don't know if they're just not in compliance or they're doing that to stick it to the man, but yeah, if you set up the LLC in Wyoming, you should be able to transact, no problems, as long as you have the VPN. Jake, what is your question on Bitcoin SV? I don't know anybody that owns it. And I haven't done enough research on it. There's been a lot of forks of Bitcoin over time that really haven't gained much adoption. People speculate on all kinds of stuff. It's odd to me that Ethereum forked, and Ethereum Classic was the one that dropped, and the other Ethereum that kept the messed up transaction is the one that persists to today. I know a lot of people that have made BC. We talked about Bitcoin or blockchain backer earlier. I know he's made a ton of money on Ethereum Classic, and he might own some Bitcoin SV if the chart looks good, right? I'm not a TA guy. I invest on utility and thesis and the companies involved and what I think is going to be built on the network. And I have zero confidence that anything will be built on Bitcoin SV. So that's just my opinion on it. Doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. There's probably money to be made there, but I'm okay with missing out on it. So let's see here. Bobby Jones is relentless with this comment. Like every one of my videos, this guy comments this. I don't think Ethereum is going to be killed by XDC. I think Ethereum is doing a good job of killing itself with the foundation and what's going on. We'll see. I think there needs to be a controlled demolition of that network if it does go down, and things will be migrated over time. And I do think that XDC is definitely one of those EVM compatible networks that will receive a lion's share of the projects that have been developed there on Ethereum, and will probably get some pretty significant volume and price appreciation with the migration of those projects. So I don't know that it's the Ethereum killer, but I do think that it will benefit if there is some problems with Ethereum. If XRP gets to 500, what will happen to XDC? XDC could go to zero and XRP go to $500. Here's the deal on anything other than XRP. And this is not financial advice, guys. I'm just going to take it with a grain of salt. I have my biases. I've said that before. XRP is the only asset in the US that has any type of precedent or clarity, period. Full stop. We've seen, the SEC's now pivoted and come back and said that Ethereum is a security potentially, and there might be a pending lawsuit on that. After they gave them a free pass for an extended period of time, you've got Bitcoin that's been given a free pass up to this point. And this, people believe it's a commodity because of Bill Hinman's speech in 2018 that we know had some problems with it because of the lawsuit with Ripple and what's been drawn out into the public there. There's really been no other precedent, period. Congress hasn't regulated. There's no court rulings. The only thing that has been ruled at all in crypto, period, on securities or what anything is XRP is not a security. We don't know what it is. There was no designation given. It fits the narrative for the bill that's on the floor right now for stablecoins as a bridge currency. So does XLM. But until that's passed by Congress through the Senate and the House, and Mr. Biden signs off on it, we really don't have full clarity on XRP. We just know it's not a security. And so in talking to the people that I do, they've told me that they won't be using anything else to transact or settle with because these other ones could be securities here in the US. XDC definitely had an ICO. It was an ERC20 token. I bought it at 0.003 cents. And you had to go way around your butt and buy Ethereum and move it to a specific wallet and swap it at that point. And the only reason I knew about it was there was this random anonymous guy that had a weird deep voice on YouTube that I saw. And he talked about XRP, XLM, and XDC at the time. And I was like, what's this XDC thing? I better go buy some of that. So I can't say I haven't made money on it. Definitely made money on it. Did really well. Don't currently own it because I don't know what happens to it. So everything's kind of a gamble. Not to say that it won't do extremely well. It could. People have already become millionaires on XDC. I know them. I know people that invested $10,000 in XDC and are millionaires today because of that. They run nodes on the network and they're great people. Love them to death. And I think XDC will be successful long term. We wouldn't be working on some of the things that we are if I didn't think that. I have no clue on price. Let's see here. Buy more XRP and not Japanese yen. We already rolled through that one. Let's see here. Let me get down here to the bottom of the questions. Appreciate everybody hopping on again tonight. Been going on about an hour, 55 minutes. Here we go. This is the one. Appreciate the super chat here, TK. He says, awesome stuff, Jake. Are you concerned about XDC being proof of stake and the SEC posturing the proof of stake or securities transaction? I'm not concerned about XDC in that regard. There might be some fines and stuff that they have to pay, and really, the majority of their interests are international. Atul and Ritesh just met with them, a couple weeks ago again in Dubai, and they were nice enough to host us there for the USA UAE Alliance and the conference that we put on, and they primarily deal with stuff outside the US. The tokens that were sold here to people, there might be some fines levied by the SEC against them in that respect, but I don't think that the underlying asset will be designated as security. I think things that are proof of stake, that are pure proof of stake, where you have to take the asset and put it into a pool, that sounds like a securities contract to me. You're giving somebody else something to produce profits with, and they're promising you that in return for your investment. Sounds like a securities contract. Is the underlying asset a security? If it's native to the protocol where that's the requirement, possibly, right? Now, things that are delegated proof of stake like XDC and Solana, I think probably get a pass. Same thing with Flare. You wrap it, you delegate it, it sits in your custody, it's not put into the pool. You don't have to hand it over to somebody else and it's in their possession. I think that there's going to be some type of workaround there where that's not designated as security. But I think things that are pure proof of stake, where you actually have to stake it in a pool and you lose possession of it, even if you have like an NFT that represents the ownership of the equity in that pool and you're paid distributions from that, that'll be a security. And we're working on that and we're registering those things, and that's compliant as long as they're registered, right? So anyway, just want to say, I don't think XDC will end up being designated as security because of the proof of stake. I'm just concerned about the ICO more than anything else. Can XDC reach $1,000, or is that unrealistic in your opinion? I hesitate to say it's never going to happen. I don't know what ends up on that network, right? Depending on what use cases are built out on the network, is there the potential for it? Yeah. I mean, it's got a limited supply. I think it's like 38 billion. It's a total supply. There is still more XDC that can come on to the market, just like there's more XRP that can come on to the market from the escrow. And so I don't think the volume will ever justify a 4-digit price on that network. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think double digits, highly probable. Triple digits, possible. 4 digits, unlikely. But I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I think a lot of people would love to see $1,000 XDC. I know some people that run nodes that would love to see $1,000 XDC. I don't think that it, again, double digits, sure. Triple digits, maybe. 4 digits, probably not. Just my 2 cents. Here's another super chat. Appreciate you, Laura. She says, what's your 2024 XRP price prediction minus $5 to $10, and how do you get your prediction? I've been asked this a couple different times in the mastermind and on other platforms in the last week. So I'm just going to give you the same answer. Low end, $50 to $100. And the justification behind that is 10% of Swift's volume. So we know we're going to have CBDCs issued this year. Let's say they do settle through something else. And XRP only gets 10% of Swift's total transaction volume. And it's R3 that gets that. And they've got 1 billion XRP in order to be able to facilitate that use case. And it's 5 trillion a day. So we're going to break that down to 500 billion is what's going to be used, on a daily volume for 10%. And you get 1 billion to be able to settle that. Each XRP can be used 10 times a day, according to Robbie Michnick's calculator that he developed. And so break that down, you got $50. That's my justification for it. I feel that that's reasonable based on, that's just math. Could we see potentially a lot higher than that? Absolutely. Depending on what transpires and again, what volume moves on the network. But my price prediction on the low end for 2024 is $50 to $100. So just tack a zero onto your predictions there, Laura or Lori. Let's see here. Short said he holds between 2 and 5 million XRP. Yeah, he took way more Ripple equity when they started that company than he did XRP. And so that was his allotment. And I think he's probably going to do pretty well there also. I know people that got in at the Series A preferred shares. We've done some transactions to get on the cap table. And it was like 89 cents a share at the original offering. I don't know what it was issued at or what kind of stock options Schwartz got as, CTO. He's contracted as CTO. I'm sure they were probably pretty good though. So I think he's going to be doing all right on the other side of this. And again, I think he got the flare drop too. So David, if you ever watch this, which you probably don't, probably have no clue who I am. You've only talked to me one time ever at Consensus last year. Good on you, brother. Thank you for everything. Jenna X. She is, man, she was so down on XRP last night on her live stream. Love Jenna to death. If you guys don't know her, go follow her. She puts out some really good content in the space. Super sweet girl. And I was sad to see that you were down about the XRP the other night in your space on your stream. So don't give up. We're still here. Let's see here. We got another one. Appreciate you, man. Super chats. Thank y'all so much for this. Happy to answer these questions, especially for the super chat. When utility hits, do you expect the price fluctuations typical for a speculative market to mostly cease and XRP will just go on steady, nonstop, rise due to ever increasing adoption? I think we'll get price floors for XRP. So when we were at Swell last year, we had the pleasure of talking to a lot of different people, and they mentioned that they do run private networks that are basically, I don't want to say attached to the XRPL, but basically direct representations of the XRPL. And within those, private networks, they do settle transactions. They run in tandem. My anticipation is they're somehow capable of being interoperable with the mainnet to be able to settle those transactions once there's enough liquidity there and people want to let down the walled gardens. So David Schwartz has talked about this before. You press a button, lower the wall, send your transaction, raise your wall. People can operate within their ecosystem with some privacy, but they're able to interact with the mainnet. And I think that there are certain markets, once there's enough liquidity to provide the settlement for those transactions, they'll migrate to the mainnet, and then that'll be a price floor for the asset. So depending on the volume, let's say it's Swift. You've got 5 trillion a day. Let's say, XRP does get, is the settlement mechanism for all of Swift between all the CBDCs and international transfers. Okay. So you've got 5 trillion a day is the volume on that network. Realistically, you might have 10 billion XRP in order to facilitate that with everybody else holding and potentially putting in liquidity pools and doing other things with the asset. And so if that's the case, you've got 5 trillion, you're looking at, potentially $500 XRP. Well, I guess it'd be 5,000. I'm probably off on my math here. Anyway, you've got, you'll have a price floor with whatever that volume is and whatever the math works out to there. And then as you have more liquidity in the asset, let's say they have an ETF and they roll in a bunch of liquidity into XRP, just like we've seen with Bitcoin, there's a ton of buy volume, but there's also a ton of sell volume, like I've been talking about people exiting. If it was just buy volume because people were looking for an exit door, like my domino theory plays out and everybody's running to XRP, you could see a significant rise in liquidity. And every time it hit one of those thresholds, it would provide a new price floor for a new market coming on the network that's already been set up to run in tandem. People speculate that, if R3 does utilize XRP as its primary settlement mechanism, then, Project Ion, which was developed in correlation with the DTCC, who acquired Securities at the end of last year in September to tokenize stock market for the clearinghouse, they, would require instant settlement, and that could potentially come on the main net if there was enough liquidity to support it. So I think you'll get jumps as more liquidity moves in. There'll be a price floor, and it'll kind of take steps like that. So I don't think, it's a long-winded way to get around to your question here. I do not think that XRP will move like it has in the past, again, because the constraints will have changed and it will no longer be a speculative asset. It'll be utility driven. My 2 cents. Let's see here. XRP taking all slings and arrows, while XLM is real giant in background thoughts. Does it all bridge to XLM? No. So again, I have a different perspective than most people on this. I get to talk to a lot of fantastic people, have conversations around business development. We're developing things ourselves with Digital Ascension Group, with some of the companies that are subsidiaries. And so talk to people in the space and about what they're doing. Hyperledger BOSU seems to be what's integrated with the majority of the merchants and retail facing applications. And IBM is obviously a partner with them. I do think that there's going to be significant adoption of that network. You've got Sorband smart contracts that have been launched on that over here in the last couple months, and seeing significant adoption of the network. You've got real world assets being tokenized on it, even more so than any other network now. The scales have actually tipped that direction. I do think it's a giant. My apprehension to long-term price appreciation for XLM is it's going to have to be able to facilitate micro payments. So there's seven decimal places designated in the code. XRP has one more. And you're going to need at least 4 of those decimal places to the right of the decimal in order to facilitate micro payments. So that really only allows XLM to scale to $1,000 a piece. It's kind of the max price that I ever see that token getting to. And from 9 cents or 10, wherever it's at today, I don't know what the current price of XLM is, but that's still a crazy upside in comparison to any other investment aside from XRP, right? So I think both of them will do fantastic. They both qualify as bridge currencies under the designation and the definition that's given by the stablecoin regulation that's on the floor. So I'm leery of Jed. Is all I'll say too. Seems like everywhere he's gone, he leaves, and then a shitstorm happens, and then he goes on to the next thing and does something else. Then he leaves, and then a shitstorm happens, and he just skates by, and is never under the microscope or has problems. He dumped tons of XRP while the lawsuit was going on out of his taco stand wallet every single day, limiting out, selling on Bitstamp how much XRP he could, all while Chris and Brad are under litigation for their sales of XRP. I don't know. There's something there. I don't know what it is, but I think there's more ROI in XRP versus XLM. And again, I could be completely wrong. Maybe there's something I don't see, and it's XLM the whole time. But that's not what I think. So thank you, F, for the donation. I will get to your super chat as I scroll down here. Kevin Doherty, appreciate you hopping on here and listening in, man. I'm also looking forward to the next 12 to 18 months. Oh, wow. Tour Dog, thank you for the super chat, brother. Hopefully I can do your $50 justice here. I can't say, thank you so much. He says, if you trade a commodity for gold and you trade it for more, I'm assuming gold later, Is that a security? For example, ETH was never traded for dollars. It was traded from Bitcoin. How is that determined a security there with no clarity or regulation in place? So there's still an ICO. So there's 4 prongs to the Howey test. One of the main ones is you're investing capital or resources or something in exchange for profit based on somebody else's actions. Okay. And that's exactly how they marketed it at the ICO for Ethereum. Even though the exchange was Bitcoin to Ethereum, you were, again, this is why I think that staking pools that are pure proof of stake will be registered as security, because they put that interest in anticipation of a profit based on the performance of somebody else that promised that to them, right? And so that's how you would be able to determine that that was a securities offering, and why it should have been registered with the SEC, and only sold to accredited or qualified purchasers here in the U.S. Under the designation of the law, right? I don't agree with the laws. Just want to say that, like, I think it's BS that retail gets shut out of these private transactions. I think there's a lot of people that are educated enough to make these decisions and miss out on significant opportunities that they might otherwise be able to participate in. I don't necessarily agree with that. Is the law. Okay. 1933, the SEC ruled that, and 1940s we got blue sky laws and all the other stuff that's come down the pike since then. And I think we're on the precipice of some change to all of that. But it's very obvious that Ethereum was a securities offering in their ICO. Again, people were paying and swapping in interest for that company to do something that would generate profits for their investment. And that's exactly how they marketed it too. That's the problem, is the language that they used in marketing it. You were investing on the premise of their efforts to produce profits for you. So hopefully that does your question justice. I really appreciate the super chat, and great question. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of nuances in this stuff that, maybe people don't have a full grasp of the regulations here in the US. And hopefully that provides some clarity around that situation. Atlantic Living, your predictions are much higher for 2024 compared to most influencers in the space. These numbers you mentioned are very inspiring. Atlantic, I try to bring realistic expectations to the table and give reasons why, and justifications for it, right? A lot of people just spew stuff. My favorite was, there was a Grant Cardone episode where he was like asking people for stuff, and a guy comes on, he's like, "You need to buy XRP. It's going to $50,000." And he was like, why would it do that? And the guy couldn't articulate or really give a clear answer. So I try to have justification for the reasoning behind things. I don't just put things out there lightly. I've done all the due diligence on this stuff. I'm interacting with people in the space. I have confidence in what I'm saying. And, a lot of influencers per se, that's what they do. And I'm not knocking it. Everybody's got their hustle, and I applaud everybody in the space. I think that everybody here does really good research and puts out good stuff. But I think I try to come to the table with a bit more expertise and legitimacy and understanding of what I'm discussing, instead of just arbitrarily throwing out numbers. I see even TA guys throw out crazy numbers. I'm like, well, how did you get to that? And they're like, the chart. And I'm like, yeah, but the chart, then there's got to be justification for that type of price rise, right? And again, show me the chart and I'll give you the news. I do think that that's a real thing, as long as the constraints remain the same. I think a utility-driven asset will have something significantly different, and that's probably why my price predictions are, significantly higher. Is I believe that the utility that'll come onto this network is significant over the next 12 months, and would drive. You'd have to have the price to provide liquidity in those transactions. So again, I try to give justification. Happy for people to inquire on that. Been back and forth lots of times, and I feel like I'm able to, at least hold my own in the conversations. Algorand, I think Algorand's great. They were also listed as a potential target for the SEC. We know one of the family offices that was one of the original investors in Algorand. They're actually a business partner of ours. I think Algorand's going to be used in a significant capacity, most likely in like third world nations. It's where I've seen the most adoption, or it seems to be the most adoption for that network. And I think it's kind of the conduit for the smart contracts that allow for interoperability between some of the payment networks that use ISO standards for communication. So, what does price do? I have no clue on Algorand. I don't know what volumes it'll be moving. I need a little bit more context around where it's actually going to sit in the space and what functions it's going to perform before I would be able to speculate on potential price appreciation for that asset. Everybody hit me with what could XRP be worth in this amount of years. I'm pretty confident in the future based on adoption, and you've seen. I'll just talk about this. So Ripple's pivoted from payments to really tokenization of real world assets and DeFi, right? They're trying to foster that. They're actually giving grants to people that are developing those applications on the network. We know Matt Donovan. If you are going to build something on the network and want to have a conversation with them about a grant, happy to make an introduction for you guys. We're looking for that maybe later in the future, depending on how things work out with a couple of the things that we're working on. But that's their focus. And I don't think it's because they didn't get payments. I think it's because payments is kind of a foregone conclusion at this point, and they're looking to the next huge asset class or value that could be brought on chain and positioning themselves there kind of ahead of the puck. The acquisition of standard custody, which hasn't been finalized yet. We talked about that a little bit earlier. We also have the only custody account for any wealth manager or family office with standard custody. We've got clients that hold assets there. If it's something you're interested in, happy to help you guys with that. $50 million worth of insurance on each vault, segregated. You have your own UI. Very nice. Anyway, tangent. I think that they're moving in that direction, and standard custody was kind of a big step in that direction. So people talk about Medico versus standard custody. Standard custody had the trust licenses and some money transmitter licenses that Ripple needed. I think they're at like 45 or 46 money transmitter licenses at this point. I think they're closing in on 50 pretty quick. Probably need those to be able to transact at scale here in the US with XRP if it were designated a bridge asset. And they'd also need a virtual asset money transmitter license here. It's like a VASP in other jurisdictions, and they've got it everywhere else. Everywhere else in the world, they've already put it together. It's really just the US that's lagging. So again, I think that they're positioning themselves kind of where the ball is going. They know that BlackRock is looking to tokenize assets. Again, Robbie Mitchnick sits as the head of digital assets division there. They need instant settlement for the back end for Bitcoin. Here, I'll say this: for Bitcoin to actually be successful as a store of value, and for all the people that want that to happen, XRP has to be successful in its mission also, in order to be able to settle those transactions at scale. Because Bitcoin network is not going to do it. Lightning Network's not going to do it. Ethereum's not going to do it. Solana's not going to do it because it goes down. There's really only one that's been running for 12 years with no errors or problems. So that my anticipation is the banks are going to trial something for a long time before they use it. And then once they implement that, that's what they're going to stick with. That seems to be where things are headed. So anyway, I think payments is a foregone conclusion, and now Ripple's positioning themselves for other markets. Same thing with R3. F, thank you for the super chat, brother, or ma'am, whichever you are. Let's see here. They've said pair character flying in the air with a red cape and smile on his face. Not sure if that's like Superman or what that is. I don't think I'm anybody special. Just another guy, just like you guys, that happens to be doing some cool stuff. So, Lori has asked, can you do a podcast with XRP 007's YouTube channel? I think that would be a fun chat. I actually haven't talked to him at all. When I first got into the space, people were really kind enough to have me on their channels, and I haven't really done another round of that. I was on Molly's channel twice and Lewis's channel a couple times. But I probably need to make some more rounds, and I'd like to have them on mine. You know, they were nice enough to have me on theirs. I'd love to have them on here for an interview and kind of reverse the roles. Maybe we'll get into that as the year progresses here. That's on the roadmap. We'll see how that works out. I think Monday nights we're going to try to make, kind of a back and forth between two people. And then Wednesday nights, just the Q&A. I get a lot of, I really enjoy these with you guys, and hopefully you guys get some good stuff out of them too. So, but yeah, would love to, if you've got his information, if you want to connect us somehow, would love to have a conversation with him. This one's good. Caleb and Brown do not offer their services to LLCs in New York. No, they do not. Do you know of any other legitimate brokerages that can help liquidate assets in New York? No. I'm sorry. No. You're going to need to file an LLC in a different jurisdiction, and then operate out of that LLC and use a VPN. That's really my only solution for people that are looking to liquidate large portions of crypto that reside in New York. I hate the amount of compliance that exists in New York. But on the other side of that, because of how stringent it is, it tends to be a really good place to operate in, and there's not a whole lot of financial crime, right? So they're protecting you from yourself is kind of how they view it. Sometimes they overprotect you, but it is what it is, right? So you just have to be able to operate and understand that you have to go around it in some way if you want to be able to participate and sell your assets. And so that would be my recommendation. Just do it legally. Set you up an LLC in Wyoming, get you a registered agent. We provide that service if you want to go onto our website and check it out. Or you can use an attorney there. However you want to do it. I have an attorney in New York that used to set up a large portion of the LLCs for us before we migrated to the new service that we're using now. And he did a great job. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. Get you an entity, whether it's a trust or an LLC outside of New York, and then be able to set up accounts on exchanges that way and liquidate your assets. Let's see here. Expoticus. Great name, man. Thank you for the super chat. What are your thoughts on repealing the Corporate Transparency Act? I'm happy about it. I'm super stoked that they basically stepped in and said that we have rights and to privacy, and that they shouldn't be allowed to do that. And the BOI that was supposed to go into effect on January 1st this year required that you disclose the beneficiary of the LLC within 90 days of filing. Anybody that filed an LLC last year, you get until January 1st, 2025 in order to do that. We have a roundabout ways of, designating the trust as the beneficiary and circumventing that law. That's what we were working on before the repeal or the transaction that's transpired, right? And they've appealed it, and so it still might get implemented. We'll see what actually plays out on that front, but I would love it if it just stayed the way it is. It's an extra expense for everybody that's filing an LLC each year to file that paperwork with FinCEN and state the beneficiary that's associated with that LLC, and it gives the government just another eye on you, right? Just let us transact. I think there needs to be oversight. Oversight is good. Okay, so you need the capability to look into things if there are problems, but if there's no problems, like, why do you need your hand in the cookie jar? You know what I mean? That's just the way I see it. There's a lot of regulators that see it that way, and then there's a lot of regulators that see it the other way. Like, they want to be able to see everything, aggregate all the information, irrespective of if they need to see it or not. I don't like that. So I'm hoping that it doesn't get repealed and the other way and come back into action, but we'll just have to see how things play out. India, T+0 equals XRP price movement. In 1 minute, their markets go live. So actually, it's 15 minutes from now. 15 minutes from now, India's markets will go live. So if we're going to see something, maybe we'll see it then. If we're not, then we're not, right? So got 15 minutes until India's markets go live for instant settlement. What else we have? Living Legacies made a good point here. I try to just answer questions. We do a lot of this in the mastermind group. So I'm in there twice a week, Saturdays and Mondays at specific times. Everybody hops on the town hall in the Discord and we have a conversation. People can ask any questions they want. I try to be as candid and answer them as I can. We have a lot of other professionals in there that get up and speak and talk on different, topics around the discussion. Some of what we're having here, some completely separate about investments and things. Anyway, great community. Happy, really proud of the culture we've been able to build there and the people that are involved in that community. And that's Beyond Broke Mastermind. It's on the coffee cup there. Actually got a whole bunch of coffee cups today, and we'll be passing those out to some members. We do have community events. We're the only community that I'm aware of that's had actual physical events almost every quarter in the last year. We did miss a quarter in there, just to be transparent with everything that we had going on. But we definitely want to continue those and have people, RIL in real life, come in and network and have a good time and share some drinks and laughs that have aligned interests, right? So really, really proud of the community, like I said. And if it's something that you think you might be interested in, you just go check it out, mastermind.beyondbroke.com. Let's see here. Bobby Jonas says, are you concerned with XTC? We went through that. And I did that one. Man, a lot of good questions in the chat tonight. Here we go. Here's another super chat. Thank you. Well, actually, we went over this one. I think there's going to be price floors on things as we go up. Brenda, I got a coffee cup for you, Brenda. Here's a good question, Heath. I did not get to play golf in Dubai. Here's my claim to fame. Okay. So, if you look me up, if you Google me, you'll find that I did play golf in high school. A lot of golf in high school. Almost won the Dallas City Championship 3 times, was in the newspaper multiple times for that. I did play against Jordan Spieth when I was a senior in high school at his home course at Lakewood here in Dallas. And he kicked the crud out of me. I had a really good day and shot like 78, 79 on the 2 rounds. And he shot the course record, 62, 64. Watched him chip in twice both rounds and make putts that you wouldn't believe. That's really when I decided I probably wasn't going to play in college or as a pro because the sophomore just beat me that bad. And so, anyway, I didn't know he was going to be number 1 in the world when that was going on. Obviously, that was a long time ago. I think had to have been 2008 when we were doing that. So, anyway, my claim to fame. I've played a lot of golf. I probably missed, 30 days in 4 years that I didn't play at least 1 round of golf when I was in high school. With scratch, I'm not there anymore. I do still hit it a long way off the tee, but my feel is garbage. I don't practice enough. Instead of, being cute and clipping a 60 off of the tight lie and having it check and spin real close to the hole, I got to, get an 8-iron or like a hybrid and like bump and run now when I go play, or Texas wedge, get your putter out and hit it. And I don't know if you've ever gotten really good at something and then stepped away from it for a period of time or whatever. And when you come back to it, you remember what it felt like to be really good. And it's kind of disheartening. Like I go play like 9 holes, and for most people, they'd be happy like a lark to shoot like 85. But because I played at such a high level, and I know like almost everything that I've ever done is like the 80-20 rule. I get 80% of the results after I've built up muscle memory and whatever else it was with 20% of the effort. And so to put another 80% of the effort in to get that last 20%, like it's hard to justify that nowadays with the time requirements. Maybe at some point I'll get back into golf. I did really enjoy when I played. I got to play a lot of golf with my dad. We traveled all over Texas, all over the U.S., playing in different tournaments. I played in Hawaii. But yeah, next time I'm in Dubai, I'll have to check out the golf, and I'll report back. I'll let you guys know which course I liked out there. Dustin has asked, are you concerned about CBDCs in regards to government overreach and lack of privacy? I'll say this, Dustin. So Jerome Powell, they're talking like him hawing around about the CBDC. We're getting a CBDC. U.S. is going to have a CBDC. It's going to happen. It's going to be issued by the Treasury, probably backed by some commodities at some point. We're going to shore up our stuff. And they will send that out. You will probably get UBI at some point in the next 3-4 years. Okay. All that's going to happen, whether you want it to or not. He's also stated that there will be private stablecoins. You'll have Amex, you'll have MasterCard, you'll have exchanges, you'll have banks and other people that issue CBDCs that are backed by something. Okay. Commodities, probably. And when they issue those CBDCs, they'll be able to program them. Same thing with stable coins. You'll be able to, program a yield or something else that people get for holding them or doing things with them, participating in an ecosystem. That's the beautiful thing about the code base that we have that's applicable, right? There is a potential that there's overreach and invasion of privacy with that. I think if the government's giving you and subsidizing you with that currency, they've got the right to know what you spent it on and probably could program what you can spend it on. If you're getting a handout, I'm okay with that, right? If taxpayers' dollars are, and we need social programs. I'm not against social programs. I think they're absolutely necessary. People fall on hard times. They need help. I think the government should be there to provide that assistance in certain circumstances. Okay. My only problem with that is I want people to use that assistance on what it's meant to be used on. And the beautiful thing about CBDCs is we can make sure that happens. You could program it where they can only spend it in certain places or on certain things. And if it's a handout to you, I think that they should have that capability. If you go out and earn that money and it's paid to you in a stable coin or whatever else it's paid to you in, I think you should have the freedom to then spend that at your own discretion in a private manner. So I think both can coexist. I don't think that there's going to be a problem. I think different jurisdictions will have different restrictions and probably legislation that's passed around the CBDC. China is a communist country. They want all of those things. They've got social credit scores already. That's just part of their culture, right? Here in the West, we're going to fight that tooth and nail. They know that. They can just, and maybe it's boiling frog, okay? They've boiled us with the fiat and the taxes over time. They could do the same thing with the CBDC and over generations, roll it into whatever they want, because people get content with things and they just, oh, well, that's the way things have always been, I can hear my dad. So not to say that it wouldn't happen, but I think it's over an extended period of time if they're going to try to attempt to do that here in the U.S. And when they first originally roll it out, I think there's going to be a lot of opposition to it. I don't think it's really a concern or worry. So good question, though. Going on about an hour and a half. Probably wind it up here in another 5 or 10 minutes or so. I try to keep these digestible for people that listen back to them later. Same thing when I did spaces on Twitter, and same thing for what we do in the mastermind group. Always try to, we record the interactions we have there, just like we record here. They're hosted in the platform. You can go back and listen to them later because a lot of people might miss them for whatever reason. So try to make sure that things are available under those circumstances. Let's see here. Brenda says, mastermind group. So yeah, we need best quality coffee to fill those cups. You want me to get some like Starbucks coffee and send them out with the cups? I might be able to do that, Brenda. That'd be good. Maybe I can pack it with the coffee in a way that it doesn't break the cup. Gotta figure out how to ship these things. Or maybe we'll just have them at the next event. People that come for the events, they get a coffee cup. So hopefully we get some price appreciation before the next event here. I think we're going to do one in May is kind of our expectation. So let's see. This is a good question from Joseph here. How can I legally move my crypto from my Ledger Nano personal to an LLC? A lot of people make this way more complicated than it needs to be. If you do want an SOP on this, which is a standard operating procedure, you can email me at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and I'll send it over to you, but it explains what I'm going to tell you. So you're going to gift the wallet address that owns the assets or they're sitting in to the LLC. So some people want you to go set up a bank account in your LLC and then go buy a ledger and send a transaction from this one to that one. That's way too much. You ain't got to do all that. Okay. In the operating agreement on the last page, it'll be a capital contribution page. And that's where you're going to list out all the assets that you're going to use to start the business. You would list the wallet address, the amount or the ticker symbol for the asset, the amount of the asset, and then the dollar amount on the day that you transferred. And you'll go get that page notarized, and that'll serve as a timestamp of when that transaction took place, since you don't have it logged on a distributed ledger that's public. If you sent that transaction, that would be proof of the date that took place. But if you get it notarized, there's a notary there. They sign the date and stamp. They basically put it in their book, and it's provable, right? So that's how I do that. And the other question I often get from people in association with that is, if I continue to buy assets, how do I get them into my LLC? Normally, you would have to have a written consent or written action, which is basically like a spreadsheet where you just denote all that stuff. But because this stuff is transacted on public networks, there's a record. It's immutable. You can see it. And it should have a transaction right there in your wallet. And so as long as you're buying the assets on an exchange, either through your personal or business account, and sending those assets to the wallet address associated with the LLC, that serves as the written action or written consent right there. So as long as it goes to the wallet that's associated with the LLC that you gifted, it's in the LLC and you're good to go. Utility Maximus. Is it important to get an LLC set up prior to price appreciation or liquidation? I'll give you some hard, fast rules. These are just my hard, fast rules. Take them with a grain of salt. If you think you need an LLC, get you an LLC. Are you going to take profits? If you're going to take profits, especially if you haven't been holding the assets more than a year, probably a really good idea to get an LLC. This is so that when you do take profits, you can offset the income taxes associated with it. Short-term capital gains are taxed as income taxes. Long-term capital gains, if you're going to take more than $550,000, it's going to be taxed at 20%. And these, I'm going to speak to the U.S. Other jurisdictions are very different. Okay. But you asked about LLCs, so that's what I'm going to give you. So if you're going to take profit, probably a good idea to get an LLC set up. If you're okay with paying 20% taxes, cool. Set that aside. Know that's what you're going to pay. Keep it in your personal name. You can set stuff up after. If you plan on, or if you think that your assets are going to appreciate beyond 13.6 million in total value per person, so you and your spouse each get that amount if you're married, so that's 27.2 million. If you think your assets are going to go higher than that, really good idea to get them into an LLC, maybe even a trust at that point. So I'll kind of give you, like, I'm just going to speak to XRP, some potential price appreciation there, and kind of the amounts. So, and this is applicable to any asset. So don't just silo it to XRP, but that's where I'm going to give you, it's simple. So let's say you had currently $80,000 invested in XRP, or maybe even have just 80,000 XRP and you're single. Okay. If you're single, probably closer to like 50,000 XRP. Let's say that, and it's going to go to $100 a piece. Okay. So you're going to end up with 5 mil, and you're going to take some profit. probably a good idea to get it into an LLC. If you think it could go higher than that, let's say we get Chain Ellis theory. Okay. We do get a liquidity event where, or an illiquidity event where there's a credit crisis and exchanges lock up because Tether gets sanctioned and they flip XRP on in order to, provide liquidity in those ecosystems. And you think it's going to go $500 a piece. Now we're talking 25 million. Definitely needed in an LLC before you get to that amount. And the reason for that is you're able to gift small portions of equity to somebody else and then get a valuation done on the LLC. And you can reduce the valuation of the LLC and the equity that you're going to be gifting into the trust by 20 or 30%. So even though the underlying asset is still a high value, just like Ripple. Okay, so if you looked at their balance sheet with the XRP on it, it's worth way more than what their current valuation is at the current price that it's trading at. But it's less than that on the open market, right? So some manipulation that you can do there in order to kind of mitigate some of those tax implications and also get your stuff into a trust post liquidity event with no problems. The other strategy that's often used is if it's in an LLC and we do see some significant price appreciation, you can use PPLI and take out a key employee policy in a life insurance policy and wrap the assets in that life insurance policy where they can grow tax-free. You can trade them inside the policy tax-free. You can take leverage against them. You can take them out. You can borrow them in kind. Lots of stuff you can do with that. But you can't write that donation or investment in the life insurance policy off unless it's in an LLC to begin with. If you do that under your personal name, you're still going to be liable for whatever taxes are associated with that contribution. So anyway, those are just some of the reasons that you might set up an LLC previous to price appreciation. If you have close to the amounts that I mentioned, again, we offer that service. I'm not saying you got to use us. You can use a lawyer. There's other services. We try to make it the most value add possible. So we do it for $800. And you might be thinking that's a lot, right? I can do it on LegalZoom for like $200. Well, that doesn't include the registered agent. We also give you a template for the operating agreement that's specialized specific for this application that would cost about $1,500 to $2,000 if you had an attorney drafted up. We also do the virtual office for you where you're designated there. And we walk you through how to set up a bank account for this LLC. So anyway, a lot more to it. I try to do the most value for the price. If you had an attorney do it, it'd probably be about $3,000 all in for the $800 that we charge. So anyway, there's my pitch. if you need one, happy to help you. Let's see here. I'm gonna answer this one and maybe one more, and then we'll wrap it up for tonight. Victor Wong says, "Can we get your workout routine? Trying to put on 10 to 20 pounds of muscle." If you're trying to put on that much weight, you're going to need to eat a lot of food, and you're going to need to eat a lot of protein. I didn't miss a meal for about 6.5 years and put on over 100 pounds of muscle from the time I was 17 until my mid-20s. I guess it's over a 10-year period. So from the time I was 17 to 27, I put on about 100 pounds of muscle. Went from 170 to 270, and very similar body fat. So there's some pharmacology involved there, just to be transparent about that. And I still use TRT to this day. But so go get your hormones checked. That would probably be the first thing I would do. Just if your hormones are messed up, irrespective of how your diet and training and everything else is, none of it's going to work effectively. Your hormones they're the precursor for everything else. And your diet can drive hormone production, but you need to check that with your doctor first, and then get supplements and supplement that if you need to. So if you need TRT, if you're a woman and you need the pellets or whatever else, you're just going to have a lot easier time actually getting results, doing the things that you know you need to do if that's set. Okay. And then after that, it's really down to macros and training hard. And most people think they train hard. You don't train that hard. Unless your nose is bleeding and you're throwing up during your workouts, you're not training that hard. I hate to be real with people. I've passed out. I have thrown up. I've blacked out. I've had nosebleeds. Crazy stuff. And I'm probably a masochist, and I have a very high pain tolerance in comparison to most people. And then you can develop that over time. But like, if you're training that hard, probably need more rest too, and you definitely need to be augmenting with some supplementation. Because you're going to need to recover. Your sleep is going to be important. Probably need to be sleeping 8 to 10 hours a day in order to be able to recover from those type of training sessions. If it's really a focus, it's going to require 24 hours a day for an extended period of time to actually accomplish what you're looking to do there. So I'm just being real with you. I've got experience in that, and I know a lot about like 3 things. That's one of them. I used to coach people for an extended period of time and competed at a high level, competed at the national level in bodybuilding 3 times. Never won. I want to take it back. I won some shows, but not ever at the national level. I didn't ever get my pro card. So again, if you Google me, you probably find those pictures too. Let's see here. All right. Here we go. Probably one of the last ones. And yeah, same thing, ISOLAT. I'm going to roll it out here. How about comparing the LLC versus Roth IRA, e.g. I Trust Capital for digital assets? Thanks for your opinions. It depends on what you want to do with the assets and how close you are to retirement is really what I'll say to this. So I speak with, I've been blown away by the people that are very close to retirement or even retired that own significant allocations of digital assets. Some of which do have investments in their Roth IRA or their IRA. Inside of an IRA, you're very limited in scope on how much income the assets can produce and also your capability to take leverage against them. Now, if you're 57 years old and you're 2 years away from being able to take distributions and you got it in a Roth IRA, I'm leaving those there, right? Like, you're close enough, you're right at the finish line, rock on. I can't tell you what to do. I'll tell you what I did. So I did have a decent chunk of digital assets in an IRA at one point at I Trust Capital. Actually, I take it back. They were at Bitcoin IRA. And I took them out and paid the penalty and the fee and the taxes because I can use them. I can leverage them. I can do what I want with them. Outside of that, they're non-qualified. I can, they benefit me more now. And I have a long time till I'm 59 years old. I've got 27 years. So in order for me to reap the benefits of that, I might leave a little bit there. Like if I had a long-term bag that I just wasn't going to touch and let it sit somewhere and accumulate price, or I thought maybe I wanted to leave it to my kids, cool. Leave a little bit in an IRA. Peter Thiel has a $5 billion IRA. You can own, I will say this, you can swap and trade things in an IRA with no tax implications. So that's one of the benefits there, but you can do that inside of an insurance policy that we set up, and you can also do that inside of an endowment if you wanted to set up a foundation. So a couple different avenues there, but you can't meaningfully take leverage against an IRA and the assets. You can take leverage against the dividends that are accumulated separate of the original investment in the IRA. So potentially, if we do have the capability to take your XRP and delegate it to an AMM inside of an IRA, and you're able to accrue interest in LP tokens, you could take a loan or leverage against those LP tokens and use that, but not the original asset. So with the LLC, you have all the freedom to do whatever you want. And an IRA or other qualified funds are still up for grabs in a lawsuit. So if somebody comes after you, they could come after those. So potentially, a trust is probably the best way to go, or even, again, the PPLI or life insurance policy is going to be your best ticket. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful in your ability to assess which one of those provides you the greatest protection and also the advantages on the other side of price appreciation. All right. I think that's going to be it for tonight. Yeah. Thank you, Junkie. If I'm just going to be transparent with you guys. People that are in the mastermind now, people that I've had calls with, people that are being proactive in setting things up, they're probably going to take precedent over people that call me after price appreciation. Our firm is going to be inundated with calls. I'm doing my best to make sure that we do have people in place to be able to scale and handle everybody's requests. But if we get slammed with like 2,000 people at once, I'm going to be hard pressed to be able to handle that amount of volume. Again, I'm trying to make sure that we have the capability to do that. We could easily do maybe 500 people right now. I know it'd be stretching us. But if you are in the mastermind group, you'll probably take precedent along with people that reached out and had appointments previous. So if you do anticipate working with us, it's always great to go ahead and have a initial call, get things set up, make sure you're being proactive, because it saves us stress and work later too, along with yourself. So that's all I would say. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me this evening. All the wonderful questions and the super chats. Appreciate all the kind words. If you haven't, liked, subscribe, please do that. We'll see you guys on the next one.